Hey everyone, welcome back. Leading a sales team, it's quite a challenge. And I think one of the biggest things is figuring out how to keep those rock star salespeople, those
Yeah.
top performers. Why do some stay? Why do some go?
Yeah, it's a real puzzle sometimes. And the cost of losing a good salesperson, it can be huge, right? Not just lost sales, but
Hmm.
think about the relationships with clients that might be disrupted.
Exactly. And then, of course, you're going to spend time and money trying to find someone to fill that empty spot.
For sure.
So today, we're really going to do a deep dive on something super critical for anyone who manages a sales team. How can we as managers actually understand what makes talented salespeople stay or decide to leave?
We're not going to rely on gut feelings or anecdotes here. There's some really cool research out there, actual data on what drives salesperson retention. We're going to dig into that.
Love that. So we've been looking at some studies that specifically examine how a salesperson's sense of belonging within a company, how they fit, works together with how satisfied they are with their own performance.
Right.
And the goal is to take this research and pull out the most practical, actionable insights that you can actually use to build those awesome, high-performing teams.
Yeah, and what's important here, you shared some research that shows how these two things, organizational fit and performance satisfaction, they don't just exist in isolation. They actually influence each other. And get this, the way they impact a salesperson's decision to stay, it actually changes over time.
Interesting. Okay, so the research really points to two key factors that seem to drive a salesperson's decision to either stick around or head for the exit. What are those? What should we be zeroing in on?
The research identifies two main forces at play. The first is something called person-organization fit, and the second is satisfaction with selling performance.
Okay.
Now, these might sound kind of simple at first glance, but what's really valuable is that this research looks at them together,
Yeah.
and how they change over time as a salesperson gains experience.
All right, let's unpack that first one. Person-organization fit. What does it really mean on a practical level for a salesperson to fit into an organization? What does that look like?
So imagine a salesperson. They're brand new, right? Early on, they're asking themselves, do I belong here? That's what person-organization fit boils down to. Do the values they hold personally actually align with the values of the company? Are the company and the culture meeting their needs? Does their personality mesh with the overall vibe of the workplace and the people they're working with? When a salesperson feels this strong sense of fit, they are much more likely to be committed to the company.
Got it. So it goes way beyond just liking the office space or the perks. It's something much deeper. Okay, and the second key element is satisfaction with selling performance. Is this just about hitting those sales targets?
That's part of it, of course. Hitting those goals is definitely important.
For sure.
But there's more to it. Satisfaction with selling performance also has to do with whether a salesperson feels like they're meeting their own expectations for themselves, their own standards. It's about their own sense of accomplishment and whether they feel they're living up to their potential.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we all have this internal measure of what we think we're capable of. Now, what's really interesting is that this research doesn't just treat these two things, fit and performance satisfaction, as separate.
Right?
It looks at how they work together.
Exactly. And the even cooler part is how salespeople figure out where they stand with both of these things, their fit and their performance. It changes over time. It's a journey.
Okay, so it's not like a one-time evaluation. It's a process. How does a new salesperson actually learn about their fit and how they're performing?
Well, when you start a new job, there's this period of figuring things out, right? They're trying to answer those key questions for themselves. They're like, okay, is this really the right company for me? Do I fit in here? That's the fit part. And then they're thinking, can I actually be successful here? Can I sell this product or service in this environment? Am I good at this?
Right, like testing the waters a bit?
Yeah, exactly. And they start to learn about their fit through everyday interactions, through how they communicate with their teammates, how they deal with challenges from customers, even the unspoken rules of how things work in the company culture.
Uh-huh.
The research actually highlighted several specific things that feed into this. What skills are needed to do well in this particular company? How conflicts are handled, how well different departments work together, the kind of feedback they get from their manager, how much emphasis is placed on building customer relationships, and how key accounts are managed. All of these day-to-day experiences give them a lot of information about whether or not they fit in.
Okay, that's helpful. And how about performance? It seems like that would be easier to measure, more numbers-based.
It definitely is more quantifiable. Salespeople look at their win rates, right?
Mhm.
How many deals they're closing compared to the leads they're working on.
Mm.
The research suggests they often start with a sort of initial guess, a prior belief, as they call it, about how successful they think they'll be. Maybe it's based on the company's reputation or what they've observed about how the current sales team is doing overall.
So they're sort of comparing themselves to what they see around them.
Yeah, in a way.
Yeah.
But as they get more experience, as they start to build their own track record, that initial feeling, it either gets confirmed or they start to adjust it based on what's actually happening.
Makes sense.
It's a very personal journey. Each salesperson's experience is going to be different depending on the opportunities they get, the specific sales activities they're involved in, and just the overall path their career takes.
Right. Okay, so we've got these two critical elements, fit and performance satisfaction. Salespeople are constantly learning about them and evaluating where they stand. Now, this is where it gets really interesting. The research suggests that the importance of these two elements actually changes as a salesperson stays with a company. What can you tell us about this? How does this dynamic work?
This is a really important insight. The influence that fit and performance satisfaction have on a salesperson's decision to stay or leave, it's not static. It evolves over time.
Okay.
So in those early months, let's say the first 3 to 6 months, that initial period when someone is new, person-organization fit tends to be the more dominant factor. They're really focused on whether they feel like they belong, whether they've made the right choice culturally.
That makes sense. When you're new, it's all about feeling comfortable and connected.
Exactly.
Ugh.
But as they get past that initial phase, as they get more experience under their belt, and they start to have some concrete data about their sales performance, their satisfaction with how well they're doing becomes relatively more important in their decision-making process.
So it kind of shifts, right? From do I fit in here to am I actually succeeding here?
Exactly. And this has huge implications for sales managers like you. It means that your approach to keeping your salespeople happy and engaged, it needs to adapt based on where they are in their journey with your company.
That makes a lot of sense. This is where we need to figure out how to take this research and make it practical.
A quick break to remind you to like and subscribe to this video. Now, back to the information.
How can a sales manager actually use these academic findings to improve retention on their team? Let's talk about how to apply this.
Absolutely. Let's start with those salespeople who are brand new, in the early stages of their career. For those first few months, your main priority should be cultivating that strong sense of person-organization fit.
Okay.
That means, having a really solid onboarding process. But don't stop at just teaching them about the products and the sales techniques. Go further. Actively integrate them into the team. Make them feel like they belong. Clearly communicate the company's values, its mission, what it stands for. Make sure they understand the social dynamics of the workplace, the expectations, and think about things like mentorship programs. Pairing a new salesperson with someone more experienced, someone who can show them the ropes, that can be really powerful in creating that sense of belonging.
Right, making them feel like they're part of the family from day one.
Exactly. But as salespeople become more established, let's say they've been with you for 6 months or more, then you need to shift your focus a bit. Now it's more about supporting their performance, their growth, and making sure they're satisfied with their accomplishments.
Mm-hmm.
So provide opportunities for them to develop new skills, enhance their existing ones, and maybe even pursue different career paths within the company.
Right, keep them learning and growing.
Yes. And make sure you recognize their achievements, give them meaningful praise, and offer constructive feedback that helps them improve even more. You need to check in with them. Are they still feeling challenged and motivated? Can they see a clear path for advancement within the company?
Right, keep them engaged and feeling valued.
Absolutely.
Now, the research also looked at what happens during recruitment, when you're first trying to bring someone on board. Specifically, it looked at how expectations about fit are set during that process. What were some of the key findings there?
Well, the research suggests that trying to oversell the cultural fit, making it sound like it's going to be this perfect match, it can actually backfire. Because salespeople, once they're on the job, they figure things out pretty quickly. They're smart. They see what's really going on.
They get a feel for it.
They do.
Yeah.
So transparency and honesty during recruitment, being upfront about the culture and the expectations, that's crucial. If you overpromise on the fit, it can lead to disappointment down the line, and ultimately people might leave faster if the reality doesn't match what they were initially told.
So honesty is the best policy, even when you're trying to attract top talent. Now, this is something I've always found a bit puzzling. the relationship between overall sales performance and turnover. Sometimes you see high performers leaving, and sometimes those who aren't quite hitting their targets, they stay. How does this research help us understand this sometimes contradictory situation?
There's a really interesting part of the research where they looked at what happens when a salesperson closes an additional deal. They get that extra win. And what they found is that this doesn't automatically lead to better retention. Because that success, that extra win, it actually gives them more information about both their fit and their performance within that specific context. So depending on their overall experience, that success might either reinforce their positive feelings about the company and their own abilities, or it might actually highlight a mismatch in other areas. Maybe it makes them question their fit in a different way.
Interesting.
And this really helps to explain why past research on this topic has sometimes had conflicting results. It's just not a simple, straightforward connection between performance and whether someone stays or leaves. There are a lot of other factors at play.
I see. It's more nuanced than we might initially think. Okay, what about the link between fit and performance, like how well someone fits in and how well they're actually performing? Is there a direct correlation there?
This is an interesting finding. The research didn't actually show a strong, direct correlation between a salesperson's sense of fit and how well they're doing in terms of sales. Yeah, it's possible to have a salesperson who's killing it, they're closing deals left and right, but they don't really feel connected to the company culture. And eventually, they might leave despite their great performance.
Wow.
And on the flip side, you might have someone who loves the work environment, they feel like they belong, but they struggle to consistently meet their sales goals.
I see.
So this really highlights how important it is to evaluate both of these things, fit and performance satisfaction, separately to some extent.
That makes sense. And it brings us to another crucial point. Understanding where each salesperson is in their career journey with the company. It sounds like a one-size-fits-all approach to retention just isn't going to work.
No, not at all. We've been talking about how the importance of fit and performance satisfaction shifts as a salesperson gains experience.
Right.
So the things that motivate and engage a brand new recruit, someone who's just trying to find their footing, those are going to be different from what keeps a seasoned, high-performing veteran happy and invested in the long run.
So you really need to tailor your approach.
Exactly.
Okay, zooming out a bit, how does this kind of in-depth academic research on sales actually help sales leaders make better decisions?
It gives us a much deeper evidence-based understanding of why salespeople leave. We can go beyond the surface explanations.
Just having a more powerful lens.
Yes, exactly. And it helps us identify the real drivers, which, as we've discussed, are person organization, fit and satisfaction with selling performance. And it helps us understand how these drivers work together and how they change over time.
Right.
But it also provides valuable insights into how salespeople learn, how they figure out their fit and their performance. And this knowledge is super helpful when you're designing onboarding programs, training initiatives, and performance management strategies. You can make them much more effective and targeted.
So you can be more proactive in addressing potential issues.
Absolutely. And ultimately, it allows sales leaders to anticipate potential turnover risks. By being more aware of the things that matter most at different stages of a salesperson's career, you can spot those who might be at a higher risk of leaving, and then implement specific strategies to address their individual needs and concerns. Whether those concerns are about feeling connected to the company or feeling good about their sales achievements.
Awesome. Okay, we've covered a lot today. Let's distill this down for our listeners. What are the 3 key takeaways from this deep dive into the research on salesperson retention?
All right, number 1, person-organization fit is absolutely essential for keeping salespeople, particularly in those early months. So focus on creating a welcoming, inclusive environment where new hires feel that strong sense of belonging and alignment with the company culture.
Makes sense. What's number 2?
Number 2, as a salesperson spends more time with your company, their satisfaction with their own performance becomes increasingly important for their long-term commitment. So make sure you're giving them the support, the resources, and the recognition they need to succeed and feel good about their accomplishments.
And the final takeaway?
The third takeaway is this. You need to understand where each salesperson is in their journey with the company.
Their career stage.
Yes, exactly. Effective retention strategies are not one-size-fits-all. You have to tailor your approach to meet the evolving needs and priorities of your salespeople at different points in their careers.
Fantastic. Great advice. Okay, so here's a final thought for you all to chew on. Take a look at how you're currently managing your sales team. Are you maybe overlooking some of the things that matter most to your salespeople at different stages in their careers? What changes could you make to address both their sense of fit and their satisfaction with their performance over time? Think about that dynamic relationship. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.